And I know from so many of you the wonderful emails that I get from how so much love is going to so many animals in this audience. And I'm so grateful, because I think that cherishing life is so important. And we're on a planet that seems to be so rough every day. And I would love if everyone were cherishing more life. And I'm going to let these little guys down so I can share some interesting things with you. Oh gosh, it just feels so good. They're just so relaxed. Oh, you're so wonderful. Okay, here you go. Well, a lot is happening on our Earth and in the solar system and in the universe and beyond. And this week, on Monday, September 30th, the New York Times headlined, SpaceX unveils silvery vision to Mars. It's basically an ICBM that lands, says Elon Musk, owner and founder of SpaceX and Tesla, who was interviewed for the article. SpaceX stands for Space Exploration Technologies Corp. That Elon Musk founded on May 6, 2002. Since then, SpaceX was the first Earth company to successfully relaunch and land its first stage Falcon 9 orbital booster 2 years ago in March 2017 at Cape Canaveral, Florida. SpaceX Falcon Heavy, that was the name. And then earlier in this year of 2019, on April 11th, Elon Musk's SpaceX Falcon Heavy launched from Cape Canaveral. And its booster and 2 rocket stages were able to land safely back at Cape Canaveral again. For the past 3 years, Musk has been refining the rocket, which is now 164 feet high and 30 feet in diameter, shown here at SpaceX's Boca Chica, Texas launchport. If you add the Super Heavy booster stage, the ship grows to 387 feet tall, a little longer than a football field. So Starship will be the largest space rocket ever made by humans and will be able to launch 220,000 pounds into orbit, almost equivalent to the Saturn V rocket during the Apollo program in the 1960s to the 1970s. That first took astronauts to the moon. The difference now is the launch vehicle is not thrown away after each trip, like in the Apollo program. Elon Musk told the New York Times on Saturday, September 28, 2019, that his Starship is, quote, basically an ICBM, which is an intercontinental ballistic missile that lands. Nothing gets there faster than an ICBM. It's just minus the nuclear bomb and add landing, close quote. Mr. Musk has already sold one Earth-to-Moon trip for launch in 2023 to a Japanese billionaire who has been, quote, providing much of the money for the rapid development of Starship, close quote. Elon Musk says that his ultimate goal is to fly humans to Mars and thinks it could happen in this coming decade. But before that, he told the New York Times that he would like to see the Starship become fast transportation for people on Earth who can afford to pay for a 30-minute trip between New York and Tokyo. And then next would be to Mars. The next destination on Mars will be an ancient lake bed. The lake bed is in a crater, shown here surrounded by a yellow rectangle in the Martian northern hemisphere. It's called Jezero Crater. It was once a lake filled with water, but now is dried up and is a good target to look for evidence of ancient microbes, and maybe even living ones. 10 months from now, in the last half of July 2020, 2 different rovers will land on Mars. This one is from America's NASA, and this one is from the European Space Agency. Both will travel to Mars to look for evidence of life. They both go in the same time window of July 17th to August 5th, 2020, because that's when the alignment of planets will allow a more straight shot to Mars for the fastest trip. It will take about 7 months to travel the approximate 140 million miles from Earth to Mars, with an expected landing date of February 18th, 2021. The NASA Mars 2020 will land in Jezero crater at the center of this image. The colors are from spectral data instruments photographing from NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter looking for landing sites. Jezero is named after a town in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's a 28-mile wide crater that once held a lake of water. Jezero contains now a preserved river delta, and the NASA 2020 rover's primary mission is to look for life evidence there. Jezero will explore the ancient Crater Lake Basin and river delta to look for past and or present life. The Mars 2020 mission landing system on February 18, 2021 will include a parachute, descent vehicle, and an approach called a sky crane maneuver for lowering the 2020 rover on a tether to the surface during the final seconds prior to landing. This will provide the ability to land a very large, heavy rover on the surface of Mars in a specific spot. The Mars 2020 rover is based on the Curiosity rover's configuration. It is car-sized, about 10 feet long, not including the arm, 9 feet wide, and 7 feet tall. But at 2,314 pounds, it weighs less than a compact car. In some sense, the rover parts are similar to what any living creature would need to keep it alive and able to explore. This American 2020 rover has a new, more capable wheel design, and for the first time, the rover carries a drill for at least 6 feet deep coring samples from Martian rocks and soil. It gathers and stores the cores in tubes on the Martian surface using a strategy called depot caching. Eventually, preserving samples by caching them could help future missions collect samples and return them to Earth for more intensive laboratory analysis. The European Space Agency's ExoMars rover will also be looking for evidence of life, past and or present, especially taking underground samples that are not exposed to the thin Martian atmosphere that offers very little protection from radiation and photochemistry on the red planet's surface. Radiation and chemistry that could kill microbes as we know them on Earth. The ESA, or European Space Agency, ExoMars rover drill, is designed to extract samples from various depths, down to a maximum of 2 meters, which is just about 7 feet. It includes an infrared spectrometer to characterize the mineralogy in the borehole, and once collected, a sample will be delivered to the ExoMars rover lab to look for organic substances. During its search for life evidence, the ESA ExoMars rover is expected to travel several miles. Both ESA and NASA would like to answer the question, are we alone in this universe? Is there life on Mars and beyond? NASA's chief scientist, Jim Green, recently told The Telegraph in London, quote, "I've been worried about that question, are we alone in this universe? Because I think we're close to finding other life, and making some announcements. I don't think we're prepared for the results. We're not." Close quote. I wonder what else Jim Green knows about what's on Mars already. He compares this revolutionary time in history, when humans are trying to find other intelligent life in the universe, to the 1500s, when humans thought that Earth was the center of our solar system. And then along came Nicholas Copernicus, an astronomer from Poland. By 1532, he had written on the revolutions of the heavenly spheres. And his revolutionary concept then was that the Earth orbited around the sun. The sun did not orbit around the Earth. That was so revolutionary that Copernicus was afraid to publish his work because he expected that the church would condemn him for heresy. So he withheld his research until a year before he died. Toward the end of 1542, Copernicus suffered from a brain hemorrhage or stroke, which left him paralyzed. It was only as he declined toward death that year of 1542 that Copernicus sent his mathematical treatise to Nuremberg, Germany, to be published. And then, on the day of his death, May 24th, 1543, at age 70, he was given an advance copy of his book. It is said that he smiled and then died. That 1500s, Earth is not the center of the solar system revolution. It seems quaint today when we have giant computers that show us with digital models how our whole solar system orbits around our sun. And the Hubble telescope estimates there are at least 100 billion galaxies. This one is the gigantic Spiral Messier, 170,000 light years across, which is twice the size of our Milky Way galaxy. And it is estimated to have 1 trillion stars. Yet, ironically, as we are reaching to the middle of the 21st century, humans still debate whether there is other intelligent life out there in this universe. I've been getting a lot of emails and tweets and Facebook comments and questions from you about what could the alien agendas be on our planet Earth. Well, last week, I was getting ready to go to Los Angeles to do some work on the new Ancient Aliens Season 13. We're beginning already. And one of the subjects is the Men in Black. And I was reading and preparing for doing interviews about the Men in Black and several other subjects. And in my library, I've had this book probably for at least 30 years. It is by Albert K. Bender. It is called Flying Saucers and the Three Men. And the three men were one of the very first reports in English literature about beings coming in 3s, 2s, or 1, wearing some kind of a hat, often compared to a German Homburg hat, with a black suit, black shirt sometimes, black trousers, black shoes, and that's why they were called the Men in Black. And I decided that I wanted to reread this entire book, and I did. And when I got to page 90, this was a description of Albert Bender, a very intelligent man, well-read, extremely good writer, who was extremely observant. And starting in around 1949, 1950, that's when he began having odd experiences. And during the early 50s is the period of time where he wanted more than anything else to understand what were the discs and the UFOs that were being reported. And he started an international flying saucer bureau to get reports. Was very data driven. And by 1953, that's the time that now on page 90 in his book, he writes about his first encounter of many with 3 men in black who he could see hovering 12 inches above the floor. And back then, in the 1952 to 53 time period, that was really something. And here is a section that goes to the heart of what these men in black told Albert Bender telepathically about why they were here. Quote, "You have dedicated yourself to the solution of the strange problem of unidentified objects in your atmosphere. Your interest is deep and sincere, and you have devoted many hours to it. We also know that such interest and determination might lead to something that could bring you harm. We feel that you are a very good contact for us on your planet of Earth. You are an average person, and we know that what we tell you and show you will not be believed by anyone you might tell. You are not a person of great renown on your planet, therefore we have nothing to fear at present. We have a purpose for being here, and we will be here for some time yet. We must not be disturbed in our ultimate goal. As you see us here, we are not in our natural form. We have found it necessary to take on the look of your people while we are here. This is mainly used as a means of returning here without being detected by anyone. Now, I'm going to pause here just for a second. I have talked here at my Earthfiles YouTube channel, in conferences, in television and radio, about the extraordinary material that I included in my Glimpses of Other Realities Volume 2 High Strangeness, about the cloning technology in tubes with lights above and below, in which half a dozen abductees were told telepathically by the beings that were abducting them that it was necessary to have human bodies in which to project the alien intelligence so that the human bodies that they used from their cloning technology could move around on our planet and not be detected. So it is a kind of similar theme. This is 1953 in a 62 published book. My book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, was first published in 1998 from half a dozen people in the abduction syndrome who had interacted with the cloning technology. Going on in this telepathic download to Bender, we have made numerous contacts with Earth by means of craft from our own base on this planet, Earth. And at present, we have craft hidden at a remote spot on your planet, and I will get to that in just a couple of minutes. We have found it necessary to go to great extremes at times to frighten off your Earth people, and it has resulted in their deaths. We also found it necessary to carry off Earth people to use their bodies to disguise our own. I couldn't help wondering, as I reread this, with so much more information under my belt, reading this book that I haven't read since about 30 years ago, and reading this, and what came to me as I read that sentence are the questions in the David Paulides work about the, I think it's 1.5 million people go missing from national parks every year or so. Could this be part of the explanation? We also found it necessary to carry off Earth people to use their bodies to disguise our own. We wish to keep in touch with you, meaning Albert Bender, and tell you many things because one day you will write about this. And he was having this telepathic interaction with these three men floating 12 inches above his floor in 1953, and his book came out about a decade later in 62. We are certain that nobody will believe you, but you will be much wiser than anyone else on your planet. You will know what is out there in space, and you will know what the future holds for your mankind. You will see all three of us again. And this goes to he was taken in a craft after there were many times with the three men, but then they take him in a craft and they show him on a big screen Quote, "Welcome to our base of operations here on your planet of Earth. You have traveled many miles to reach this spot, but the time has been only seconds, whereas you would require many days to reach this same area by your conventional means of transportation. You are at a spot on your planet known as Antarctica. We have chosen this area because it is uninhabited and there is no one here to disturb us in our task. We have made this base by tunneling into your ice-covered surface and burying ourselves with only a small opening through which our smaller craft may enter and depart. The intense cold here does not disturb us, for we are not affected by your range of temperature. Our bodies acclimate themselves readily to such ranges. The surface of our home planet is barren and the cold even more intense than here in your southern polar region. All of our cities on our planet are constructed underground. We have crater-like openings on the surface through which we are able to elevate spacecraft stations for takeoffs and landings. When these stations are not in use, they descend into the craters, and the landing fields serve as a cover for the openings which only communication towers then are left visible. I have been instructed to show you just what we are doing on your planet. It is with your seawater, your ocean water." And there is another long section in this book where they explain that they are going to be on this planet for 15 or 20 years processing from the ocean waters material substance that is, quote, "vital for their survival." In the book, there is no detailed explanation for how the process is done, what exactly it is, and Bender makes it clear that the alien intelligences were saying, we do not want your humans on Earth to understand what we are doing. So that was as much as he learned, that they were processing our ocean water for something that they defined as vital for their existence. And the Antarctic part, I had forgotten that Bender had written about, from the telepathic download, that Antarctica was one of the bases that the beings that he was interacting with, that was where they had chosen one of the bases. And that ties today to what was not available back in the 1940s and the 1950s, that there had been a discovery by our government as early as the 1970s that 2 to 3 miles down under the ice in Antarctica, they could tell from deep ground penetrating, ice penetrating radar, that they were looking at huge structures that had 90-degree angles and various things. And that's where we get to the evolution of training SEALs and Delta Force and others to go to Antarctica, first to investigate, and then by 2018, I was able to videotape the interview with Spartan 1, who is a Navy SEAL, retired in December of 2004 as a full commander in a private ceremony in the Pentagon, was a lieutenant commander of SEALs in 2003, the year before August, when his assignment was to go to Antarctica. And his approach, there have been different approaches described to me by different first-hand people. In his case, he came in on a big carrier. A helicopter took off from that when they were near McMurdo, flew to somewhere near the Beardmore Glacier area. They went on to half tracks to go to an entrance, the Black Octagon entrance, and then down and down and down through structure after structure after structure. And when he was down at the 2 miles below the ice. This is where the Navy SEAL Spartan 1 described going through those thick, 18-foot thick doors made out of what he was told was black basalt, and that you could touch and they would swivel, and that as you come through and would turn around, there was the black sun carved in the back of a plane door on the front. Black sun, as you would come around and look back at the door, with star maps. There were various configuration of star maps on the inside side of the big black doors, and that they recognized, and he was shown that some of the star maps related to the Milky Way galaxy, but some of the star maps seemed to be referencing two other universes. Not dimensions, not timelines, but two other universes being mathematically related to this universe and to our Milky Way galaxy as a focal point in relationship to how these maps were carved in the black basalt, and that there were 9-acre rooms and all of the hieroglyphs and the symbols, and his mission was to extract the scientist who had been there studying the language carved so precisely 7 centimeters deep. All of it was 7 centimeters deep into this dense stone. And that Spartan 1 found that the scientist was reluctant, did not want to leave, because was so fascinated with what is this language, what are these symbols, what are the hieroglyphs, what is the meaning, when was this built, who is the they. Now in the Men in Black by Albert Bender, he has sketches, very excellent sketches, of the men in black that did the communication with him, wearing their hat, and see if I can show you one fast, because it really is good, and it matches many of the ones that I have dealt with in my career. In my book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 1, there is an excellent drawing that a man in New Jersey experienced, one of the men in black in his room in New Jersey, totally conscious, just like what Bender was experiencing. And when you compare what I have in Glimpses Volume 1 with what Bender was sketching for his own work and book, I had a note on it and it fell off. It's so funny. It was right, here it is. Here it is. Let's see. Brad, maybe you can zoom into here. There. This is Bender's drawing of one of the men, how they looked. 1930s kind of dark suit, out of the time. Not in the 1950s. They were dressed like something he said like in the 1930s. That's been described by other people, wearing the hat, and very close to the man who I knew in New Jersey and interviewed, who said that he woke up and that a man in black wearing black glasses was standing right beside his bed. And it was as real, he said, as if a person were standing there. But the difference is there's communication, and then it just snapped away. Where some people have said, could they possibly be holograms, very sophisticated holograms that are projected, and that the beings themselves, we'll call it the prime intelligence, that is responsible for the men in black to interface with humans, the men in black could very well be a holographic technology used to communicate, and that the technology has the ability to access the language center of any human in front of the holographic technology. And that's how it could carry on a telepathic discussion, communicating directly with the language center. So whatever the language was, it wouldn't matter. The holographic 3 be able to communicate with anybody on the planet at any time, anywhere, by accessing the language center. And that might explain it. Now, there is one other interesting piece at the end of this book. And I think I would recommend, if any of you can get Bender's Flying Saucers and the Three Men, it actually is more relevant today in 2019 in many ways than it was when it came out in the 60s to the 70s, when there were counterintelligence units attacking anything that would come anywhere near the truth. Everything was attacked and called a hoax and a joke. Today, this book is worth reading. And there is a section for those of you, here it is. Remember, here, Brad, I'll go into the, yeah. This is a drawing that relates to an image that Bender was put into his mind telepathically on the big black ring around the lighter area, the circular area. And a lot of you have asked me from, it was one of my Earthfiles YouTube live streams last year. And I said that I'd had a discussion with a kind of a whistleblower type. He's helped me a great deal. He still works in Washington, D.C. And he's the one who I think had very real firsthand information about at least a couple of people who worked for MJ-12 for real, coming out of the Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy administrations, and then they began to die off. The last one was Hunsaker in 1982 of the original MJ-12. The man that I know, and he talked to me about this, said that MJ, I think it was MJ-8, had told him that the Ebens described for our government that our universe is not the only universe, but that surrounding all of the universes, like a huge beach of sand, was a big, black, cold, dark sea. And the man told me, when I said immediately, well, what is the cold, dark, black sea? He said, I asked the same question. And he said, MJ-8 said, you don't want to know. Sort of the same thing goes on here with Bender. That drawing was that they were telling him that that there were other universes, and that around the other universes was this huge black area, and that what the intelligences here on our Earth, processing substances from our oceans, what they wanted to find out was how far does the big black surrounding area of the universes go? What is in it? And does it end? And that they had lost a lot of craft trying to carry out that exploration. So the value in going back to some of this work, as far back as 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, and up to the book, is that material that has been, say, from the 80s to the 90s up to where we are now, you begin to see resonances, and it's like weaving some complex rug where all of the colors start coming in and forming a whole new pattern, and that Albert Bender might have been dealing with one of these, as that DIA analyst told me in December of 1999, if there are three competing, that's what he said, that our government had proof that there were three competing, that he stressed, competing, in conflict, extraterrestrial civilizations that have been interacting with, terraforming, and harvesting genetic material from this planet for at least 270 million years. Well, the entities that are projecting themselves here as men in black, maybe they were a rogue group, something that wasn't even one of those three, or maybe it was one of those three. And the fact that they were talking about doing the processing in the oceans would tie back to so much of the UFO history on this planet, at least for a few centuries. There's been as many sailors and people at sea who have seen craft come out of oceans and lakes and seas as over land. And the Navy or the Defense Intelligence Agency analyst told me that one of the things that he had learned, and it sort of ties into Bender, sort of ties into Antarctica, it sort of ties into this question of if there are competing extraterrestrial civilizations, where do they base themselves, because they're not clearly in our face on the surface. And the DIA analyst said that part of the proof that our government has is that they knew that these three different civilizations competing with each other had chosen various places inside of our planet, underneath the crust, and that some of the technology of some of the alien intelligences has the ability to analyze an 8,000-mile diameter sphere like our planet, 25,000 miles around, with technology that just knows exactly everything, all of the striations, magma, lava, iron core, and big basins underneath the crust, and how to go down through the deep oceans to the bottom, and then through the bottom, coming out into big, once upon a time gas bubbles that are caverns. And that we humans, we only relate to the very thin crust on the surface. If you have technology and the intelligence of some of these that can analyze an entire planet as a spherical geometry, then they may have 1 million square miles to work with and inhabit. So I'm sharing this tonight because this really provoked me in thinking about the present and the past and where things are headed in the future in doing this rereading to get ready for doing the 3 Men in Black for Ancient Aliens. And it might be something that some of you who are really seriously interested in, I can tell from a lot of the correspondence that I'm getting that many of you have really profound interactions with intelligences, and a lot of you are coming to me to tell that you, in a military background, even though you've signed non-disclosure agreements, that there's a tremendous amount of knowledge in this audience. And I'm so grateful to know that. And that maybe tonight, this is another one of those pieces that you can start fitting in the puzzle. Because in a strange way, doing this live stream on Wednesday nights is sort of a way of me gathering more puzzle pieces, trying to put them into this huge picture. Who are we humans, really? Who genetically manipulated DNA in already evolving primates to create a whole series of standing up primates? Us being the latest model. And unfortunately, we're a model that seems to have perpetual war. Is that desired by the genetic manipulators? A species that will always fight? What is an end product of war? A lot of death. And there we get into the complicated possibility that one of the agendas has to do with the recycling of souls. The reincarnation is the machinery of this particular universe. And it may very well be that some life forms in this universe have souls that recycle, like humans. But there might be a whole lot of other intelligences that are denied that. It may be that reincarnation, the recycling of souls, and being able to have some sort of a spiritual core that fights for principle might be part of the experiment. Maybe it causes too many wars. Maybe the hybrids that are supposed to be on the earth now are an effort by some other intelligence to neutralize, to modify the human compunction to fight. But meanwhile, the souls are untouched. I say question marks to all of this, but if Whitley Strieber were here, Barbara Lamb were here, Jacques Vallée were here, we would be in this kind of discussion, because that is where the if you go back to the Foo Fighters of World War II, and you come up through all of those lights that could do all those amazing maneuvers around the planes in World War II, and then you come to all the crashes and the government slamming doors shut. No one is to know anything. And then we have the black world develop next to the white world. And meanwhile, the white world has had interactions, not just with seeing beams of light, with seeing craft, with seeing glowing spheres. The white world has been abducted. And in those abductions, as Albert Bender is a describer of his, he's taken two craft. He has shown screens. He has shown things that he doesn't understand. So the whole question of today, as we're moving toward 2020 quickly, and we have the Defense Department and the Navy finally saying, yes, we acknowledge there are UFOs. And video is getting out, shot by Navy jet fighter pilots, who say that what they're seeing, those lights, those glowing lights, those UFOs, those discs, those tic-tacs, those Delta Force, whatever they are, that they're doing speeds and stopping and doing 90-degree turns that no human organic flesh pilot could endure. Maybe this is how they're going to open the door. It's going to be finally acknowledging there is advanced technology. And we're not alone in the universe, and it's teeming with life, some of it recognizable, a lot that's not. Agendas are unknown, except for some of the explanations to some of the abductees. And then, if you get there, we are maybe in 2020, by 2021, we're going to have that big headline, we're not alone in this universe. That's what a lot of people see happening that are writing letters. This is what whistleblowers are saying. This is going to happen. So maybe you'll go into Albert Bender and learn some more. And now, Peggy, this was a longer segment than I originally had planned, but I wanted to add this Albert Bender and the Antarctic piece, and would love to at least take the time for 2 or 3 questions. I'll try to go through as quickly as possible and hope that the chat is showing that this is fascinating material, that there's probably a lot more that we should be going back and looking at to help us understand from the past to the present. So I'm here to take a question.
Okay, Linda, first I'd like to thank some people in the super chat: Renee, Jones, Christine, Angel's View, Sean, Jeff, and Linda. Thank you, everyone, for your support.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And a happy birthday to Kay Quinlan, a longtime viewer. Her husband asked for a happy birthday. So
yes,
hopefully he's having a great day.
And I think of it as revolutions around the sun. Just think of it as revolutions around the sun.
We have a great question to start off tonight. Do you believe there are stargates on Earth?
Yes, absolutely. For those of you who have not seen my 4-part Spartan 1 and Spartan 2 whistleblower video, which Brad and I are working on, we are going to release. I think it will be released without question, somewhere in the first half of November. We will be making announcements, but I'm doing an update. There will be an update, and then the entire hour, without any segments or breaks, will be released, and we're going to do this on a video on demand, and we'll be telling you all about this. And you'll be able to hear the Spartan 1 and Spartan 2. As Spartan 1 specifically was educated as a Navy SEAL, lieutenant commander, and now a commander, retired, about the portal systems. And in, I think it's our segment, it has been segment 3, it will be in the last half of our hour. He talks about how he personally was shown, briefed, that there's a portal in Gakona, Alaska, where the HARP facility has been for a couple of decades, and that they can go into a place there and walk. As he says, you just walk. That's all the person doing the portal knows. You get to a certain place, your destiny on the earth, they come out in Hawaii. So there's a portal in Hawaii and a portal in Gakona, and they go back and forth. He says that the Wilkes Land magnetic anomaly, it is the most anomalous, it's the biggest or most extreme magnetic anomaly on planet Earth. It's the Wilkes Land magnetic anomaly. That is in Antarctica. And Spartan 1 says that he knows that astronomers assume that it was a metal-rich meteorite that slammed in, or a comet that had metal and slammed in and went down deep under the ice. He said his orientation as a Navy SEAL going there to deal with the alien archaeology was that it is a portal. It is a machinery. It is used by something, somehow, as a portal. And he was also introduced in his work that the portals, if the Earth, again, we're back to spherical geometry, something that humans just do not relate to in their everyday life. But if we become advanced and survive, and we're going to move out in the universe, we will have to be dealing at this level as well. That if you're dealing with planetary bodies as spherical geometries, portals, you have to have mathematical relationships for how and why you are putting portals wherever they are, some natural and some created. And then when you are at that level, the portals on Earth relate to the portals at Saturn, to the portals at Neptune, to the portals at Uranus, to the portals on Mars, to the portals going beyond our solar system, out to, let's say, to Sirius and Zeta Reticuli 1 and 2, and Epsilon Eridani and so forth. All would have portals because the advanced intelligences are not moving like this in Euclidean geometry through light years. They are literally moving point to point, point to point in like that. And it's hard for humans, where we have to get in cars and we have feet that walk, and we have to move so far across Euclidean geometry, and it takes a lot of time and energy. When we get to a point where we can move point to point, I suppose that's another one of those huge civilization intelligence leaps. Because could you be in a planet that had 7.2 billion consciousnesses and minds that wanted to jump portals? It kind of, when you start asking questions like that, your mind goes tilt. It's not quite comprehensible. But the portal physics is there. A physicist who was working on ring lasers at MIT has knowledge about the portals, talked to me about this. So they're there. Okay, Peggy, let's try another.
Elon Musk has just said he's seen nothing to convince him of ETs. What is your opinion about that?
When I heard that, I thought he's been read into the program. Those who are officially taking money and assigned and working on contracts in departments associated with the black world and some black and white world, is just the standard. There's nothing out there. No, we're alone. No, don't worry about it. He's a smart guy, and he has a lot of courage. And if anybody's going to get that Starship or maybe some other version to Mars, I know that Musk sort of implied to the New York Times that he expected that they might be getting there like the middle of the 2020s. And NASA has a program, and I think ESA has a program in Europe, so it'll be very interesting to see. But all of the people who are going to be involved in getting to Mars, I'm assuming, unless something drastically changes in the geopolitical relationships on this planet through this very rocky, choppy time we're all going through right now politically, something could change dramatically, and they announce everything and they say, we're going to tell you all the truth now. We're going to tell you everything. Yes, there's archaeology on Mars. Yes, there was a civilization. And in fact, in the Bender book, there is a section where it talks very specifically about Mars and how there had been a civilization there and it had been destroyed. And it goes into this section about Mars. Elon Musk made a joke about the Apollo crew of Armstrong and all of those guys. I think it was just last year, and he was implying that Buzz Aldrin knew about aliens. Well, I'm assuming that if he was joking about that last year, that probably Musk knows more than his brush off. What did he say? I think the quote was, I haven't seen any evidence of aliens. Wasn't that the quote? Peggy? I think.
I'm not 100% sure of the quote.
I think I read it today or yesterday. I think it was, I don't have any evidence that there's aliens. And that would be kind of classic counter. So let's try another question.
When we finally get disclosure, how do you think the aliens are going to react to that?
Well, it depends again on who are these three competing, conflicting intelligences that our government has proof that they have been here for at least 270 million years. Who's top dog? Is there a geopolitical pecking order? Spartan 1, it was interesting because he had no deep education about the alien phenomena, but he was given specific briefings. And the one specific briefing that included 8.5 by 11, I believe it was, photos, is when he talked about that the only aliens, extraterrestrials, and he also says they could be from another dimension, they could be from another timeline, and that instead of quibbling over whether they are extraterrestrial biological entities from another solar system, whether they are alien intelligences from another dimension or timeline, let's just say other intelligences, the photos he saw, the briefings that he was given, tall humanoids that look like humans, except their heads are bigger and higher here, no hair. Slightly different facial features, but pretty much human. With a body that was looked strong, but not fat. And that their tallness was in the 6.5 to 7 foot tall range. Now that's what Spartan 1, when he was in Antarctica in August of 2003 on that mission, this is what he was briefed, this is what he was exposed to. And there are others, there are other military sources who will say that humanoids, somewhat like humans, are definitely involved. That's what Ingo Swann, in his book Penetration, the most talented remote viewer that anybody has ever encountered, was Ingo Swann. His whole book, Penetration, is about the humanoids that he knew were not Homo sapiens sapien, that were working in the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and were his handlers. So, what is the gamut of it? Who are the real prime, let's call it a capital P, prime intelligences? Let's say that there are 3 main prime intelligences. They could have artificial intelligence in clones, in cyborgs, in androids, in a whole range throughout the entire Milky Way galaxy, throughout the entire universe of whatever was habitable, and that you could have 3 main prime intelligences and they could have fought over and occupied a tremendous amount of territory, and everything out of 1,000 different planets with life might lead back to those 3 prime intelligences. This is why it's so difficult. Nobody is helping us. Nobody is guiding us. Nobody is trying to define for us who are allies, hostile, and neutral. And in the abductions, the abductees, they become very confused because they often are dealing with holograms or little androids or something that's programmed, and they get what they've been programmed to learn without having any dialogue with the prime intelligence behind whatever is the reason for the abduction. So we humans are in a point in history where we are struggling to understand a lot of things now, including what is the true nature of our own universe, and the physicists who are writing papers today that are being published about whether or not we're in a holographic universe. And if we're in a holographic universe, it has to be projected by another dimension. And why is there what we perceive to be organic life and inorganic rocks, crystals, metals, so forth, in this universe, and the organic life only has a short shelf life, and the inorganic world goes on for 13.8 billion light years and counting. These are truly the profound mysteries of this universe. And one of the questions that keeps drumming in my head is, why are we in a universe where everything has to eat something else to survive? It just always bothers me. Why can't we be like the plants and just live on light and water and air? Well, we'll end on that note tonight, and I really look forward to being back in 2 weeks, because I'm going off this Friday to San Diego to go on the UFO cruise, and I won't be back until the night of the 13th. And so Monday the 14th, I will start getting prepared to come back and update you on everything that happened and whatever I have learned. And that will be on the night of the 16th. And in between, while I'm gone, Peggy, we have a surprise, don't we, for this coming Wednesday?
We do. Everybody can still get their Earthfiles fix next Wednesday. Come to the same place at the same time, and you can watch one of Linda's favorite videos.
Yes, it really is one of my favorite live streams for Earthfiles. And I look forward, as always, to all of your feedback. And please, we're now at 122,000. Would everyone tonight tell everyone you know to please subscribe to the Earthfiles channel on YouTube so that we can get that number up? I'd love to get it up to 200,000 or more, just for the fact that then we would have this larger body to interact with and what it means in the YouTube world. Help me do that. Subscribe to the Earthfiles YouTube channel, and we'll expand this discussion. And when I get back, I will have updates for you, but I'll also plan to take more time for your questions and answers. And I love you guys. Help me. Hang in there. See ya.